Good evening, everyone, wherever you are, wherever you're listening to this. Welcome to a special Easter roundup of Blackpool's three scintillating games of football that we've played since we last spoke to you. The Burton and Exeter home games, and today's disappointing result against Stevenage, which we'll try and unpack. Some of it won't take very long. Some of it will take a little bit longer. Defeats always tend to. This is a bit of a weird one. Tom. Obviously, he needs no introduction, but he's getting one because he's not hosting tonight because he basically can't be arsed, and he's got me to do it instead, the fool. Anyway, Tom, welcome. This is so weird. I can't explain how weird it is.
No, credit to you, Martin. Been a long day at work, so thanks for getting everything ready. And looking forward to talking about 66% of the games, obviously, and we'll get into more detail about Stevenage, I'm sure. But have a nice Easter.
Well, it was great until today, wasn't it? Feel good factor was good, and I was quite proud to put my Blackpool shirt on. And then today, I feel like I've been punched in the stomach a little bit. But yeah, you know, it's not ended very well. But never mind. But obviously, also without further ado, let's bring in Hoggy. Hoggy, hello, mate. I know you're the same as me and Tom, that we've had a positive Easter. And then we go to Stevenage and it absolutely craps all over us.
Yeah, spot on. Shot ourselves in the foot, didn't attempt to win it. And it feels like we're back to square one, very much looking over our shoulder again, going into another must-win home game next week now.
Yeah, we thought we'd maybe got some clearance and some breathing space, but it doesn't take long, does it, when it's 3 points for a win and you don't turn up for your game, and then Exeter all of a sudden play like Barcelona and beat Doncaster 3-0 when they didn't look like capable of beating anyone when we played them the other day. And then we're back to square one. And it is pretty rubbish, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And like we said on here a couple of times between us, when we dropped into the zone, it was the kick up the arse that we needed, and we put a run of results together. But a bit too much blowing smoke up our own arses, a bit too much high-fiving and praising, and the reality is you're only as good as your last match, and that's where we are. And now Exeter are going to be absolutely buzzing. I know they've got hard running, but they've clearly managed to put a performance together, and they're not going to go down quietly without a fight, are they? So we need to pull our fingers out and get back to gain, well, first of all, putting in performances and try to win games and getting 3 points. Otherwise, we will get relegated, end up in League Two.
Sure, absolutely. Well, as I say, we've got 3 games to look into. We're not going to go into them in forensic detail because there's too many games. Basically, there's 3 games to look at. So we'll start with Burton, and that seems like what was that now? 8-9 days ago, was it?
Yeah,
God, I don't know. It's like Christmas, isn't it? Easter. It's so weird, but although Christmas was quite positive and Easter was until today. So here's the lineup then. So we'll just briefly go through it. So the main standout there was, of course, that BPF was away with Northern Ireland, not playing. So that was worthwhile, wasn't it? But Ravazoli came in. And then obviously the mainstays of Casey Horsfall, Brown, Hamilton, etc., etc. Tom Bloxham started up front. But overall, guys, Tom, thoughts on the lineup and how did you think Ravazoli did, considering he hadn't played for such a long time?
Yeah, I thought he was good. I thought he earned the start. He would have earned the start for Exeter as well. I know we're getting into that game in a minute, but it wasn't too much of a shocking lineup. Obviously, we've seen Everett recently make a few changes and amendments within the team. Ravazoli was obviously picked himself, but I thought overall he was pretty decent. There wasn't really much for him to do. I think Burton had 1 or 2 shots, obviously, but the conditions were poor. But a couple of hairy moments with punches, like directly back at the defenders. But overall, a few more of decent punches and a few more claims than Peacock Farrell's done in recent weeks. But yeah, I mean, got the job done obviously in the game itself. But yeah, the team itself didn't really bother me, and it was as expected in a lot of sort of ways and means, really.
Hoggy, Ravazoli is he's been quite an unfortunate character, really, hasn't he? Reminds me a bit of James Trafford. He comes in and thinks he's got a number 1 spot, and then we go and sign someone else a couple of weeks later, who's not our goalkeeper in this instance. Well, he is now. And I've wondered whether in some of the cup games when he still hasn't played him, whether there was some sort of attitude problem or whether he just downed tools or whatever. But Evert's bigged him up, whether that's just being a clever with the psychology because he doesn't want to lose sort of his support or whatever. But for Ravazoli to come in knowing full well that he's probably not going to play the next game is not easy for a goalkeeper, is it? Especially when you're a long way from home and possibly your future isn't here.
Yeah, we've talked about it being difficult for him. Like you say, it's never a good sign for a number two when he's not playing in the lesser cup games. But in his defence, Everett spoke highly of him. And Ravazoli, okay, he didn't have much to do, but everything he did do and was asked to do in terms of claiming crosses, his distribution, organising the defence, it was on point. It was reflected in a clean sheet, and he did give Ian Evatt something to think about in terms of when Peacock Farrell returns. So fair play to him. You can't say fairer than that. And I think as well the celebrations at the end of that game showed that the players do think fairly highly of him. Which was nice to see. So yeah, fair play to him. He didn't put a foot wrong in that game, and it was part of the big 3 points.
I think just briefly, it's worth mentioning, both of you, that obviously Randall played, and he's somebody that has divided opinion. Well, I say divided opinion. Bolton fans can't be doing with him, can they? We're not really sure what to make of him. He doesn't look like somebody who's up for a fight. And maybe if you're in a great team like Peterborough were a couple of years ago, he looks a really good player. But for us, he's having to struggle because we don't have a lot of creativity, and he's not really one of life's battlers. But if you can remember this game, because it was 10 days ago, how either of you, Tom, how did you think Randall did?
Not a fan of Randall in the mainstay of the team, really. I think he probably should have came on today maybe a bit earlier to see what, why Everett bring him in and see if he can change your game. But I think it was the Exeter game, which we'll come on to in a minute.
Yeah.
I know he had a really good opportunity, or this game, one of the two, he had, I think he won. No, just in terms of duels won, he literally won 0 ground duels and wasn't involved in any form of winning the ball back in terms of recovery. Now, why that might not mean a lot on paper, Fletcher had about 7 or 8 ground duels to win. Bloxham was up there in terms of battling for the ball. Obviously, naturally, the midfield were. He literally had zero attempts to sort of regain the ball. And I think he just meanders within the middle of the park. And whilst he's obviously a talented technical footballer, he's used to, during his purple patch at Peterborough, playing in a really exciting team that played either 4-4-2 or, they utilised the wingers really well, as Sariki Dembele and a few others like that. And they got the ball tip-tapped between them. He made some really key passes in behind. And lo and behold, Peterborough, just when they're on form, as we all know, are ridiculously good at playing football and scoring goals when they're in their their pomps, so to speak.
Okay.
For me, one of these players that needs to be in the team. Unless it's really set up for him, and I don't think we help him, and I don't think he helps us. Howe is above Clarkson in this sort of game, in my opinion, which it's a perfect game for Clarkson, both Exeter and this game to start. It is beyond me, in my personal opinion, and and Clarkson actually was brought in to change games and have an impact like he did against Huddersfield.
Hoggy, briefly, are you a Randall fan? Has he had enough of a chance? Is this really his kind of gig, or is he completely out of his depth in this setup?
Has he had enough of a chance? Possibly not. Is he, or do I think he should be a victim of the situation we're in? Yes, because as far as I'm concerned, he's a lone player and couldn't give two shits if Blackpool are in League One or not next season, because he's going back to Bolton, whereas Clarkson absolutely does. Let's not forget as well, Clarkson came on for the last 20 minutes or so of this game or something like that and set up the winner. I appreciate Randall has looked okay at times in that role, but in these types of games, certainly the Burton one and the Exeter one that followed, the scrapping and the battling, he's not unsurprisingly not looked interested at all. I do feel a bit sorry for him that he did get stuck more out wide left, which I don't think is his favourite position. But still, using Ravazoli as an example, you're coming in, you're doing a job, you do the basics right, you work hard, you get stuck in, and that absolutely wasn't evident. And for me, when those attributes are not being displayed, and certainly from a lone player who has no commitment to us in regards to where we are next season, it'd be nowhere near it for me, certainly not over Clarkson.
just, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen, do we? Because we don't know what league we're playing in. But is there a chance that, because Bolton don't want him, and if Everett really likes him, do you think he could come here, or do you think?
There's every chance if Bolton want to sell him, and they'll probably want to recoup the bulk of the fee. And if we're stupid enough to play sort of 750k for him in League One to £1 million to recoup that 1.3 million, then that's a more foolish spend, in my opinion. When you can probably
I can't see that either.
For that sort of price, you can get a player on loan, which is 10 times more impactful. You know, like as an example, Lincoln got One, who scored like 10 goals already this season. I know they're in a different situation, but it's exciting. It's vibrant. He wants to win the ball. You know, he's clearly showing them that he wants promotion. Randall, for me, isn't doing enough to say, I want to keep us up. You know, we've had plenty of loan players over the years that do that. In more recency, defenders like a Fire and stuff. Not, you know, I know we weren't in a battle, but he was always playing for the shirt.
Sure.
And Clarkson wants to change the game, and he did that within 2 minutes of coming on.
Yeah, okay.
You look at players like Byers and stuff like that in the past, and going further back as Dickov, you know, people actually wore the shirt and grafted for 90 minutes on loan and had an impact and kept us up. He's nowhere near doing that yet. Hilariously, having said all this, we're playing one of his former teams, aren't we, on Saturday coming up? And we know how football works when former players line up against former clubs. They more often than not tend to have a great game, unless you're Matt Phillips today. Cheers, Matt. Appreciate that. So Randall might very well be back in the starting lineup next Saturday.
Sure. Let's say hello to a few people who have been kind enough to send some comments and say hello. Mike Robinson, hello. Good evening. Mark Podesta, welcome as usual. Mark. Everett 38. That is Kurt, isn't it? Of course it is. The organizer of the Ian Everett fan club. Always tricky playing these massive clubs like Stevenage. Nearly nicked a point. We didn't. We really didn't. I know the irony and sarcasm is. I totally get his point. Clarkson is head and shoulders above Randall for battling. This is Luke. Hello, Luke. For battling, putting a tackle in, and caring because he's our player. I agree with you. I think if you're going to play someone who's creative and is a little bit of a, dare I say, a maverick, you might as well play our player instead of some lone player, as Hoggy rightly says. And also, Kurt, we can't ignore this one. Anyone playing that weird left-sided midfield role is never going to look good, as they aren't played into the game by the centre-backs or other midfielders. Fair point.
Yep.
Fair point. Okay. So, just really briefly then, lads, the first half of that game against Burton was... I mean, I don't blame them for this, but I do think Burton were taking the time from minute one, weren't they? And Gary Bowyer is... The first thing Gary Bowyer did, though, that was extremely clever, really, was to win the toss and turn us round, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way he wanted us attacking that north stand in the second half, so he turned it round. And to be fair, it nearly worked, but it was a turgid first half, wasn't it? It was a turgid kind of performance that we've seen all season. Really, it was a typical League One game. Not an awful lot of quality. You know, some no lack of effort. I didn't think particularly from either team, but there was just not an awful lot of quality, was there? Really, it was just a bit of a non-event, and 0-0 was a pretty predictable outcome, wasn't it, from that first 45?
Yeah, pretty much. And I think it would have been fair if it had been the full outcome overall. Exeter, I want to move on to Exeter shortly. It was a little bit better, but on the whole, how many times do we feel we've seen these 45 minutes of football where just nothing happens? It's like a really, really shit game of chess between two people who can't play chess more often than not. And yeah, nothing happens, and it's frustrating that at times it feels like we sacrifice any sort of belief in ourselves to play a game that we can come out more productively from than the opposition, and we fall into their hands. And today was a prime example of that. But luckily, on whatever day it was when we played Burton 10 days ago, we took our moment, as Ian calls it, and came away with 3 points.
I mean, we are skipping. Well, I say we're not skipping a lot because there's not an awful lot to talk about. But in fairness, in
second half, mate.
This is not a headline that we often would write, but CJ the Saviour, and it is quite topical because Easter's a time for the Saviour, isn't it? But it was a good goal, wasn't it? We talked about the impact of Clarkson. He got us moving. Tom, talk us through it. It was a decent move, and again, in a sea of mediocrity, it was a bright spark, and it won us the game. Just as Tony Parr had announced there was going to be another 8 minutes of this extravaganza. CJ pops up within 10, 15 seconds of that and bangs the winner in. I never know with CJ whether he means to place it how he does, but no one cares. It went in. But the build-up to the goal was decent at least.
Yeah, I think to reverse ourselves all the way back to the start, I think one thing that Ravazzoli brought into the team was the ability to play decisive passes and actually try and get the ball moving, either with a short pass or a nice clip out to the wing. Not saying that Pickford doesn't do that, but he often overhits sort of long balls and hopes to put it into areas where the players are going to be, where Ravazzoli was much more decisive. And I think he got the ball down, noticed that we needed to get moving and put it into an area where Ennis sort of gambled on it. I think Ennis deserves huge credit as much as Clarkson does, because the little touch onto the floor to direct it towards Clarkson to allow him to have the ability and the time on the ball was really decent. Whether that looks lucky to some people, I think he generally means to, get some control over the ball to bring it down, of course, to give it to Clarkson. And that tiny drop of the shoulder to create half a second of space to blast Hamilton, obviously, was brilliant. And I have to give Hamilton huge credit. As Kurt rightly said, when was the last time he pops up and changes a game and gets the winner? The next game in, he does it, but it's a superb first touch, and of course he means it. Could their keeper could have done better? Yeah, probably, but at the same time, it's a low, hard shot, isn't it? And it's, I think we probably deserve it on the run of play. They had one shot on target the whole game. They tried to play for a point, and they got what they deserved in the sense of, well, at least we made the subs to change it, and Hamilton sort of deserved that moment because it was rightly that a good goal to win it, and then we obviously had to follow it up at Exeter.
Hoggy, just briefly your thoughts on that. I mean, listen, CJ is someone who has been here a very long time, really now, probably too long, and he's become a bit of a cult figure because he's got his own song, but he's basically crap, which is it's very affectionate, but he doesn't have too many moments where he wins as a game or actually kind of makes that much of a massive difference. But he did the other day at least, and he's obviously a lovely fella. That doesn't win you football matches though, but he got a winner. For me, it's a popular winner because he is one of life's triers, even though he's not very good. But I do believe he's someone that's suffered completely from being played out of position by about 5 different managers who still haven't twigged he's no good in that position. But it was nice for him, but more importantly for us, to get that last minute winner and give us some more momentum, wasn't it?
It was, and we've said throughout the season, obviously the absolute mess it's been from minute one. Let's not forget CJ has played in 4 or 5 positions in other games to accommodate for other people in other positions, whether it be 4-4-2 under Bruce playing left back, or 4-2-3-1 and Everton helping other players play in their positions, etc. So he does deserve some credit, and yes, he's limited, but again, I'm not fully in the peak fan club of absolutely loving him, but he can be effective at this level because of his pace. And we're playing League One football. We've just said that how many halves of football have we seen that are just shit where nothing happens. And at Bloomfield Road on a big pitch where there is space in behind more often than not, he can be effective. But on the flip side, we're also stupid enough, quite often, unfortunately, to play him in games like today, where he's not effective, and he never has been. He's never going to be a grafter. He's never going to get stuck in and battle and go for 60-40s not in his favour, etc. So we don't help him out in that respect sometimes either. But yeah, he's been here for a long time, and again, fair play to him. I mean, some people might argue if Bowler didn't get injured, he might have been brought off rather than Bowler before the goal was actually even scored, because he wasn't having a great game. But he was left on, and fair play to him to have the initiative to get up the pitch and support what was, I agree with Tom, in terms of an actual half decent move between, from Ravazzoli to Ennis and Clarkson, to get on the end of it, and yeah, he tucked it away. So fair play to him, and I do still think he'll be a really big and important player for us. Certainly in the 2 home games. Wickham away, I'm not so sure, and Reading away, well, cross that bridge when we get to it and see what's on the table.
Sure. We were talking just before we came on air, though, that obviously the Burton game was the anniversary of sorts, because it was a few weeks afterwards, wasn't it, of the homecoming. which, you know, for everyone that was at the homecoming and anybody that had anything to do with it, is always going to be an emotional time. And the club did really well with the ticket pricing, and it definitely created an atmosphere. There was probably, well, there were. I mean, the crowd was it just over 11,000, and Burton did they bring 500? So for me, we probably gained about 1,000 to 1,500 fans that we've had recently. It seemed to do the job, and I think what was really encouraging is that a lot of those did seem to come back for the Exeter game as well, which was great. But what did you think? The fans have played a massive part in this, and it's been said on our podcast chat a few times recently how much the fans have responded to this when needed. The rallying call's been there from the club and from the manager and the players. They've responded, and then certainly as far as the home games are concerned, they've been rewarded with results, if not amazing performances. But what were your thoughts? Because you like me are in that north stand. What did you think of the atmosphere? It's nice to see the south pretty much sold out as well, wasn't it? That's a rare event in itself.
Yeah, it's good, and it just shows that, you know, if the club do off the field put their head together and put a bit of a plan in place, that the fans can respond, and there is a desire for people across the town to come to Bloomfield Road and support the team. And again, you know, we pretty much sold out the home end the following week after Exeter, and I wouldn't imagine we're going to be too far off doing the same against Peterborough now, because again, no doubt the roll call and the rallying cry is going to go out again over the next few days following today's shambles, because the fans are going to be needed again. And yeah, the players are responding at home, which is great. Frustrating that, you know, you're asking yourself the question of where the hell's it been all season and why we only do it now when we're backing ourselves into a corner. But from off the field point of view and the club's point of view, hopefully Simon Sadler, it's a bit of hope there to say, hang on, not whatever happens next season, because if we're in League Two, good luck flogging tickets at 350 quid or whatever. But
exactly,
if we're in League One and you get it right, and you lay out your strategy for the club in terms of what you want from this season, and you make it, you know, an appealing price, and look at the long-term impact of getting stands full, the impact it has on the pitch, a secondary spend off the pitch, the things that are going on around the club, sales in the club shop, the fan zone that's been created, it's only going to continue to build momentum and go in the right direction. So there was a lot of positives, not just on the pitch, in the Burton game, off it as well, and the club do deserve credit for that. But that shouldn't just be a one-off. That really should be the catalyst of what should be being drilled into a full season-long effort of gaining momentum and creating, you know, the young and up-and-coming generation of fans for the club that are going to be here for years to come, because it's absolutely vital.
Sure. And that brings us on to the second of those, sort of that double header at home, because then within 6 days or whatever, we've got we had Exeter, and again another must-win game. The fans, I think this is even more impressive with the fact that, you know, let's face it, if you're paying the booking fee on top of it, it's 31 quid to buy online, or 29 quid a walk up, or whatever it is, 27, 28 quid. Basically, it's too much money for League One football. I mean, most clubs in this level are doing it, but even so, to be able to get that crowd again, like you just said, is just further evidence that when it's needed, the town will respond. And imagine if we were doing really well, what those crowds could be, especially if they got the East working next season, and they could stick some more fans in there. But the Exeter game was another must-win game, non-negotiable. Just again, some thoughts on the lineup. There were. I'm just trying to think. Were there any changes?
No, Peacock Farrell came back in.
Peacock Farrell, apart from him. So yeah. So BPF
Colson
obviously
started.
Straight back in.
Colson started.
And Coulson started, exactly. So again, so Randall gets another go, despite not. I mean, we've done Randall to death probably, so we won't mention him too much. But again, Bloxham and Fletcher up front, and BPF coming back was always going to happen, I think. But the lineup was probably fairly predictable. But at least in this game, they did sniff blood early on, Blackpool, and really with anything like half decent finishing, we could have been 2 or 3-0 up before we even scored, couldn't we, Hoggy?
Yeah, I was going to. Walters came in for Casey as well, because Casey went off with a knock, didn't he? Again,
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
against Burton. I thought Walters actually had a really good game, and I think we saw a bit more of I know he played the right side centre half, but he played it a little bit like a right wing back in terms of he was pressing on quite a bit. You saw that in the goal that was scored. I did something a little bit different from Casey's game, but again, I don't want to get drawn back into formations and 3-5-2 because we're flexible and we're not wedded to one formation, of course. However, Casey is a centre half. He's not a right side of the three kind of thing.
Correct.
So it was nice to see that Walters made that a bit of extra space, supported the play down the right hand side, and it was no surprise to see that's where our breakthrough came through. And to be fair to DJ, as much as I said he's got the heart of a pea, he did challenge for a 50-50 header down the line. I don't think he won it, but he jumped and his head went into his shoulders when he jumped up but he took a defender out of the game, obviously, and the ball manoeuvred its way through to Blocko, which was great.
Tom, do you know what? Give us an insight, because it's easy for. I mean, I'm cursed with living in Blackpool, like Tom, like Hoggy is. So, like, when you watch it on at home, and it's a must-win game. What was it like for you watching the Exeter game, and the fact that we missed those chances? What's it like when you're sat there watching it, and nothing you can do? You can shout at the telly, but how was it for you? The overall experience of watching Blackpool Exeter.
I think expectations were, in my expectations, as arrogant as it sounds, that we should be 3-0 up at half time and we can relax a little bit and try to control the game. And I think what the players got after five or so minutes of having those chances early doors with Hubby and Randall, etc. And Hoggy's Hoggy's bang on. I think the most important thing that came to light in this game was the fact that Walters, I compared it a little bit to, not, this is me comparing Fletch to Kane and Roy Walters to Walker, but I use this as an example when Walker plays centre-back for England. When you've got two decent defenders, that defender can have a bit more freedom and make space and push forward and make chances. And of course, his ball to block him for the goal is phenomenal. And it gives us a bit more fluidity at the back. But what it felt like is we should have been 3-0 up and cruising. And the overriding emotion for me at half time was, yes, great that we're 1-0 up. However, are we going to sort of mould ourselves back into not having belief, and our Exeter's going to slowly sort of take control of the game?
Sure.
And I think there's two things to this. If the players played with that much freedom all season, we might be 12th and having a bit more of a easier time towards the end of this season. But why don't we play with that much freedom just because Exeter are on a poor side with no belief? That sort of performance would put anyone on the back ropes, whether that's Cardiff, and we saw that at home, of course, with the victory against them. But that should be the tone we set from kickoff every single week at Bloomfield Road. And on another day, it might be 2 or 3-0, and we're praising the system and the confidence we have. But it was difficult to watch because it was a must-win game. But the moment sort of Bloxham lobbed the keeper, and we had a bit of control in that first half. I didn't have any confidence. Sorry, I didn't have any sort of emotion to think we'd lose the game. However, the latter part of the second half, I thought we might draw the game, and that's where the problems are stitched into this squad's DNA. Unfortunately, we've become more and more obsessed with trying to lose the lead rather than trying to control the game a little bit. But incredible, just to touch upon the fan base, absolutely sensational. And Luke said it already. As fans, we've all done a bit all season and last season and the season before that. We've travelled well and not seen any win in 2026. And the fans don't need to do much more. But just to add to Hoggy's point, Bradford get over 20,000 every week. That should be the complete norm for Blackpool Football Club as a club to have those fans trickling into Bloomfield Road every single week and making that sort of noise. It's the club really that have let the fans down, and the players that let the fans down, in a sense of it's got to this point for us to be in this position where we're selling out, and Hoggy's right, we could be in League 2 next campaign, and it's frightening, but also it's disjointed as we've been for many years.
Hoggy, we'll just mention the goal, and it's only simply because Bloxham he's had a strange season because he was converted into a centre forward because it was seen that was his best position, and I think while I personally have thought he's done okay in that position, and all I've ever said is okay, Was that the sort of finish that you expect from him? Because if it's a straight one-on-one, I don't trust him. But when it's a bit more instinctive, there's every chance he's going to do something a bit special like that. And it was a great finish, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I think you got it spot on. The fact that he didn't have any chance to think about it, to bring it down, the keeper kind of made his mind up for him by coming out, and he got to get there first and lift it over. A bit like the one that CJ missed beforehand. I think, if we're all being honest, no one really felt confident because he had time to take a touch, think about it, wonder where compare it to his goal against Burton, where he just had to hit it pronto and get it out his feet. The more kind of touches we have to think about what we need to do with the ball, we seem to, whoever it is, seems to make an absolute dog's dinner of it. But yeah, it was a nice goal, and typical of League One, not overly creative, but you could see the intent of our play. We're passing the ball with purpose. It was a nice ball down the line. CJ's challenged for it, might have got a little flick on if we're being very creditful to him. But yeah, it's spun in nicely for Blocko, who's again, he does this really well. Whenever he gets really tight to a defender or a defender gets up his backside, he seems to be able to stick them on his back like a shell and turn them pretty quick and get away in behind. It's certainly one of his strengths. And the last few weeks, I've been really, really impressed with him. For me, I'd be starting him every single week now to the end of the season, ahead of generally as our number one striker, ahead of both Fletcher and Ennis, who have been appalling. I think it was ridiculous not to start today. However, what I will say is that he does still only seem to have that 60, 70-minute mark about him at full pelt. But then when you've got players who are clearly unfit around him coming on the last 20 minutes, then that's the way we've got to go, so be it. So yeah, I've been impressed with him. Again, whether he's a striker or a wide man, I don't know. But what was interesting, and just talking a little bit about the tactics and formations that we did play, it's the first time I really noticed it anyway, from the north, is that we noticeably went to a 4-2-3-1 at times against Exeter in the first half, where Coulson dropped into left back, Husman came across centre half with Horsfall and Walters as a flat back four, and Brown and Honeyman dropped in. And it just seemed really solid and structured. On, like you say, the first, I appreciate Exeter weren't great in that first half, but between Hamilton, Randall, and Bloxham playing in behind what Fletcher at the time, they were able to divert and dart off in different areas and cause space, and they all had chances with that movement. So it was quite nice to see that. In the first half, anyway. The second half, it went back to the Burton-esque game of just dig in and grind it out.
Your point there, Hoggy, you are right. As I was going to say, it felt like, I'm not saying the Blackpool the championship, but when we're at home and we're creating chances left, right, and centre. Brown had a shot, Hamilton had a shot within the same minute, then Fletcher 2 minutes later, then Randall, then Husband. This was all within a 5-minute spell. He had 6 shots. Then Coulson had an effort, Horsfall from a set piece, Bloxham's finish. And then we meandered into the second half and they nearly got an equaliser. But that first half an hour with 6 or 7 players having a different attempt on goal, from a set piece, from a shot to being played in behind, to a one-on-one with Hubby. It was chaotic, but like Hoggy said, when we switched systems and we got that belief in us, it felt like the Blackpool of old in some respects, and it gave us a bit of life in the crowd as well.
Sure. It says on the banner there, second half. There's not an awful lot to say about the second half again, but Exeter were better the last 15 minutes, put us under a bit of pressure, a lot of set pieces, a lot of corners. We started to retreat into our shells a bit as per usual. But the feeling at the end, the relief, we talked about it before, Blackpool players sort of sinking to the knees. For me, in context, it doesn't really matter too much to who you're playing or what the relief of winning the game is great, and certainly the squad look together, and they all look together. But maybe it's easy to look together when you've won a game in front of your own fans. But the sort of the relief at the end is great. But where's this been all season, guys? I know this is that's a podcast on its own. I get that, but this sort of will to win at home. Do you think it's this? I called it in the podcast chat today. This mentality of it's all right, lads, there's always next week, and then when you find yourself in the bottom 4, you realise that there isn't always next week. Do you reckon that was the difference over these last 3 home games? Because obviously, we've taken 10 points out of the last 12 in total, haven't we, until today? Beat Port Vale, point against Cardiff, etc. But is it the desperation, the realisation that there isn't always a next week that's caused? Is it? I mean, Steve Thompson. We've not even mentioned him tonight. has he had an effect? I'm led to believe he's not doing an awful lot on the grass. It's more a kind of a vocal kind of role and helping out with, I don't know. But do you think it's, what's the reason for the sort of urgency in brackets before today? Do you think that's made the difference?
I think as we know what happened today, it's that kind of question is really antagonistic in some respects, and I understand you don't mean it to be that way, but
I don't at all. No, I don't.
Hoggy said it earlier. It's do or die, isn't it? And if I'm being honest, as much as I want to be positive about the 2 wins, I kind of feel like both not were lucky, but the Burton game we were 5 minutes away from drawing 0-0, and we're bang under pressure, and I get it. It was a great moment to win the game. Played into their hands a little bit like we did at their place. And Exeter, we allowed them to grow into the game and put crosses into the box in the 94th minute. They had a miscued shot which could have easily gone, better quality, and we've drawn the game 1-1. It feels even worse. So it's great that we've won, and I think the structure and the defensive mindset of the team has got much better over the years. We haven't capitulated, etc. But it's do or die, and they had to win them. Like, as much as it's easy to lose those sort of games, Exeter had to win today against Doncaster. It's that mentality. We've got to do it. And we deserve to beat Exeter, of course we did. But you can bring Tomo. You can overanalyze everything. If Tomo's brought in with 10 games to go, which is highly embarrassing for this management team, he's not just being there to say, "Come on, lads, let's try and do it." He's giving Everton some insight into what the fuck we're doing wrong, and that's fact. What's the point in bringing him in if he's just going to go, "Come on, boys"? It's just that's not the case. He's not a vocal coach. He's coming.
I guess my point probably was antagonistic, because really what I should have said after that to caveat that was today another example of, oh, it's all right, there's always next week, because we think we've done the hard work. Hoggy, what do you think?
It's what it seems. I'm laughing at the idea of Tomo being the one that's brought in, say, "Come on, guys, you can do it." And there's fucking 9,000 people have turned up for the last 2 weeks and done the exact same for him. Do you know what I mean? I love Tomo. There's certainly much more to him, but like Tom says, it's embarrassing on the current management team, and that's them trying to save face for being found to have egg on the face for the past God knows how many months of shite performances, doing the same thing over and over again.
Analysis, what the fuck's Everton been doing for the last 7 months? Because it's taken him to come in for us to play differently. That's my point.
Look, Bruce got absolutely hammered for doing the same thing over and over again. And like I say, there's been a little bit of variation, but again, we know how today went, and it was same old Blackpool 3-5-2 away from home, didn't have a shot on target, get in the bin. Sackable offence for me today. Genuinely was. And it's nailed my colours to the mast of, if we go down, Everton shouldn't be here at the end of this season. Because you simply cannot afford in a relegation battle to send a team out and put in that lack of level of a performance in this situation. And the game against Wycombe, and it's all right saying we'll turn up at home against Peterborough, but let's throw other factors into it. Shite refereeing performances. Someone goes and sends someone off for whatever reason. Suddenly you're back against the wall, and you can only Pompey today. Down to 10 men after 10 minutes, and they can only hang on to get a point when realistically they've been looking at all 3 potentially. So you can't simply just rely on your home form and expect to win them hunky dory and piss away games up the wall and not try and attempt to win games whatsoever, or at least show the desire to get involved in games. And that comes from the management team. It's not acceptable. And like going back to what Gunny said before about the away fans that have travelled home and away over a busy period, spending more of the hard-earned money, to have it shoved back in the face for absolutely no reward whatsoever. It's not acceptable. And Wycombe, it's going to be the exact same as what we saw today. So are we just going to roll over and do the exact same again and go down to the last game of the season away at Reading going, oh, I hope there's nothing to play for? Because like you say, Martin, there might not be another game. There might not be a tomorrow by that point.
Yeah, no,
it's clear Exeter have pulled the finger out their arses.
They certainly have today. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There was a comment actually I wanted to read before. It was, we'll talk about it in a second. Rocky, what's your thoughts on Ennis? He doesn't look fit, and we will absolutely talk about Ennis in a second, actually. So don't worry about that. He definitely needs a little bit of analysis. Right, okay, so after those 2 at least positive outcomes, we then bring ourselves to a name that, having been there once, and that was the first time I ever met Tom in person, I have been to the Lamex Stadium, or whatever it's called, to Stevenage. It is a thoroughly, horribly unpleasant place to go, full stop, but it's an even worse place to go and lose a game of football because it's just not, there's nothing redeeming about it whatsoever. It is nothing nice about Stevenage as a town. Apologies to anyone who's from Stevenage. There's nothing good about it. But we went there, and I know we won there last year, but I think they had nothing to play for. This season, they've got plenty to play for, and it was not good at all. So, Stevenage away then, with 6 points in the bag, should be going there full of confidence with an idea at least of trying to win, trying to get 3 points or at least a point. But then I think that is probably maybe what happened, or that was the aim, and it didn't work. But in terms of the lineup, no Walters. So we go with Hamilton, with Casey, with Husband, with Coulson, Peacock Farrell obviously in goal, Horsfall, Brown, Honeyman. Clarkson finally gets a start after the begging for him to start, and because he's our player and because we've invested money in him, and Ennis and Fletcher up front. But Hoggy, I'll come to you. We talked about this before. So a game that possibly isn't right for someone like him, he gets a start in a team where I mean they're a big side. I mean Piaggini is somebody that I wouldn't want to meet on a dark night down an alleyway, despite the stupid 1992 bouffant haircut he's got. But never mind, he winds me up. But in a serious note, though, it's not really a game for Clarkson to go and show his talents, but he played him. Is it because Randall is so terrible that he's thought, well, he is my only creative spark, I better give him a go now?
I don't know. I don't have an answer, Martin, as to why the hell he played today. Like you said, yes, we were all crying out for him in 2 home games against 2 teams who were always going to offer very little against us. But everyone, apart from Ian Evatt, clearly, apparently, knows exactly what Stevenage are going to do, how they're going to play, the absolute epitome, blueprint of a League One team, the basics you expect at this level of football. And they are brilliant at it. It's not pretty, it's not nice, but my God, are they effective at it. Is any of their game what Leighton Clarkson is? Absolutely not. Insanity. Same with CJ Hamilton. How many times have we seen these games bypass CJ Hamilton at Blackpool Football Club? And guess what? It happened again today. So, like I said, we just make our own problems continuously, and we got thoroughly what we deserved. It was absolutely no surprise. It was only ever going to take 1 goal, and the slow reaction of the subs that were made and the way the subs were made, when ironically Clarkson did well to dig himself out of a shithole of a midfield game and actually start to get on the ball and make things happen and hit the post with his free kick, and then be dragged off, was bonkers. Was absolutely bonkers. And you've got Anderson on the bench. So Anderson and Clarkson couldn't be 2 more differing midfielders. Oh, why are you not starting him in this kind of game? You just described Piaggini. The rest of the Stevenage team are the exact same.
Yeah. Tom,
the whole thing just made no sense today. No, it's all right. It just made no sense, and we got what we deserved, and we're back in the mire.
Tom, playing devil's advocate, if I was an outsider looking in, you've got a guy that we signed from Aberdeen for decent money, comes with a lot of plaudits from Aberdeen, great reputation. We haven't really seen it yet, but then he hasn't really played enough. It's been cameo roles off the bench mainly. If he hadn't have played him, do you then get the criticism, well, for God's sake, why has he not picked him again? Do you think everyone's like, I think Hoggy's right in terms of, is this the game for him? But the fan base in general, do you not think they just want to see the most creative player? So he plays him. I mean, if it had been left on the bench, would everyone have gone, oh, that's the right decision? Or what I'm saying is he damned if he does and damned if he doesn't, at least before the game starts in picking him?
Look, mate, there's, 7,000-8,000 fans that probably have X that have their opinion. A lot more vocal each week, of course, including us who do a podcast on it.
Yeah.
The Hoggy's right. Play him in the prior to, rest him for today. You're in a position where you're now playing, whether it's right or wrong to play CG, I don't know. I prefer that Phillips is physical, White is physical, Reed is physical, Kemp is their flair player. We know about Kemp. He's scored a lot of important goals for them this campaign. Roberts is fit, physical. Piagiani fit, physical. Freestone, mobile. And we knew about Good. former player of ours, pushed husband over. You know, when we had a set pieces, just loads of shithousery. Clarkson should not have started today. Anderson in the previous game was it Port Vale? We were singing his praises before he went away. It was Port Vale, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Cardiff.
Cardiff.
Also.
Cardiff.
Him and Cardiff. Yeah. So yeah, Cardiff. He was superb in terms of being the legs in midfield and the physicality. You bring on Clarkson when you want to break up the game and maybe have an impact in the last 15 and play players like Taylor in behind. The moment he started to get onto the ball and we started to create a bit more chances, like Hoggy said, he hauls him off and brings on a defender who you'd wanted to defend a lead and who's not going to make chances, despite him having some positive moments in the Blackpool show with goals against Huddersfield. But I love Anderson. He should have started today. He should have been the legs midfield. And instead, he's taken off Bloxham, who's at the peak of his, I've just scored a winner in a really massive home game. I want to start and prove myself again. He's dropped him. He's dropped Walters, who's unbelievable at right centre-back to give us some mobility and a bit of difference. And he's put Casey back in there who can't move as a right centre-back. He's just not mobile enough. He got turned a couple of times again today. So the lineup for me, I don't give a shit who says it's wrong if Clarkson doesn't start. It's whatever it wants to do. And he's proved his point today that I still really don't trust him to make these tweaks and explain why it's the right move. Why was today the right move to play Clarkson? It was all right, to be fair to him. Like, we bypassed the fucking midfield. All we did today was punt the ball. So why start Clarkson? And then why say we're not brave enough on the ball if Peacock Farrell is going to make 70-yard punts up the field for another goal kick back to them? What's the point in playing him? Play him to play the fucking football. Get the ball down, dip it into midfield, let him drop the shoulder, let him play in Hamilton in behind. If Hamilton's going to play, put him in behind.
Sure.
It's a great point, Tom.
It's unbelievable as a manager, whether you're Bruce, whether you're Critchley, whether you're Appleton over the years, if you play those players, play the fucking game you want to play to attack a very strength. They were a shambles at the back today, the first 15, 20 minutes. Why were we not all over that? Yeah. And then we decided to start going long and hopefully we get a 0-0, and we'll take that into Bloomfield Road and secure safety. But Stevenage are okay. They are a bang average League One side that know how to win football matches. They're better than us at it. They've got the identity to do it and they've got the consistency of doing it. I'm not criticising Stevenage, but we should have gone there today after 3 clean sheets in a row and absolutely tried to batter them off the park. And if we lose 2-0 because of it, then fair play. We take that into Bloomfield Road and we carry on playing the same way again. But we did neither today. We did not play a good long ball game because Fletcher could not move. And we didn't play a good passing game because we fucking punted the ball to Ennis, who's a bloody steamed pudding of a fucking dessert at the moment up front. And Fletcher can't control the ball. We're utterly useless today and Ever got the setup completely wrong and his subs were diabolical. Sorry.
Okay. No, it's all right. It's like this is what this podcast is for. Tom, you know better than I do. This is therapy, mate. Mike said...
it's not fit, Mike. It's just...
No. So Mike obviously...
30 minutes, isn't he? So...
Yeah, one thing about Anderson is how fit is he after coming back from international duty? And then he also, just seconds later, added there's apparently a small issue with him, which is why... Now, we all know that... I don't want to use the word data because some people will explode if we use the word data, but they obviously look at the stats, etc., in training. I mean, maybe he wasn't quite fit to start. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't get it.
The last 20 is fit enough to play the first half, isn't he?
Well, I don't know. Is he?
Oh, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know. You can look at it two ways. Yeah.
Game, see how he goes on. If he's awful, then
and this backs you up as well. Why are we punting? Mark always contributes to this podcast. Mark, welcome. Why are we punting balls when no one ever wins a fucking header? I mean, completely right, but that's something we do, isn't it?
It's not playing Stevenage's strengths either, that is it? Punting a long ball.
Not at all. No aimless long balls into the middle.
My argument is, and why are we doing it at home either? Like, I like the more direct approach in some respects. I think Critchley used to do it a lot with Husband.
Yeah.
And we laughed him off the pitch at that point. I think he had a 12% success rate as that ball to Hamilton, who expect him to send to Usain Bolt times 4. When he just directs the ball into some form of space and hopes for the best. But play a long ball game if you've got some plan. At home, we do it, and it's appalling. Fletcher isn't a bastard. in many respects. He's not a
No.
Medine. The ball
No.
doesn't stick to him. He's very technical. He's very good at dropping off. He's very good at linking up play. It's probably a flogged horse at this point, if I'm honest, and that's why the honker today. But we dropped Fletcher and play Ennis. He needs to just not play at all again this season because he cannot move. He's either got a knock or he's just put on so much weight that he can't run. And then maybe he can be an impact sub like he was against against Burton. Sorry, but there's many problems wrong with this squad, and at the moment we had to make hardly any changes today to have a very similar result to Exeter.
Sure.
And he changed it for the sake of change. And I have no idea why. If Walters is unfit, which I don't think he is, if I'm honest, I really don't think he's unfit. I just think he's scared of the physicality. Whereas, he played himself well into Cardiff game after I think he was going to throw an absolute stinker. You start to play himself well into the game, and sometimes you just need to be blooded. You need that punch in the face so you can go, Christ, I'm in a game here. Let's go again. It's just, I don't get it. He got it really wrong for me today, and it's put us bang in trouble again.
Hoggy, I mean, I thought for the first half an hour we did okay. I think we did okay. We sort of handled it. The last 10 minutes of the first half was a bit hairy, but we managed to escape it. And then on an hour, exactly 59 minutes, we get a free kick, which is our only meaningful kind of like exciting moment of the game. Clarkson's very unlucky. He bends it round the wall, hits the post. If that goes in, who knows? But it doesn't. And it just goes to show really that our only kind of moment of any sort of creativity is from a dead ball. It's not from open play. We were never going to open them up, were we, or get in behind them very much today. We just didn't seem to have enough about us. But it could have been a great moment and sort of kickstarts his career. It doesn't. And then 5 minutes later, we concede the sort of goal we've been conceding all season, really. There's sort of a bit of fight at the start of that move to try and win the ball, but we quickly kind of get out muscled. And I think is it Honeyman that's sort of battling with him. I've only seen it once I haven't seen the replay.
Don't use the word battling with that.
No, but it's what I'm saying is that in the end it's weak. It's weak, isn't it?
Player,
it's weak, and then he manages to sort of. I mean, quick word on BPF as well. I mean, he's no chance for the goal, and he played really well today. And actually, if any of our squad have improved over the last few games that he's played, it's been him. I suppose mainly because he hasn't made an absolute fuck up. But thoughts on the goal, Hoggy, and is that not just a typical Blackpool FC 25-26 goal to concede? Shit, I hope it's not next season because I can't stand any more of this.
I'll probably in a different league by Stevenage, won't we, next season for carrying as well, unfortunately. It could be two divisions between us, quite terrifyingly. I'm glad you mentioned Peacock Farrell. He did have an okay game today.
Unbelievable save.
He's really good save in the first half. Yeah, the deflection from the edge of the box, and then obviously the one from the header that came over at the back post, and the rebound. I wasn't sure if it was it him and Husband on the line essentially together at the same time. Yeah, I don't actually know who blocked it, but fair play to them. They did whatever they needed to get in the way. I've only seen the goal once, and yeah, there was again the irony of playing so many defensive players and having two defensive midfielders in your team, and time again not being able to pick up the second ball on the edge of our box. It just sums up why we are where we are. It's shy and it's not good enough. And it's not even the cleanest of strikes. If you go back to the Cardiff game, the one that I said Peacock Farrell turned around the post, that's probably the save he's more impressed with. It felt very much like that. So he'll probably be a little bit annoyed that he didn't actually get down to it and get it round the post. But yeah, that was it. Ball at the back of the net and game over. Simple as that. Game over. Offered absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Going forward, brought on some players with a bit of ability into Taylor and Bloxham who like the ball into feet. So as we've discussed already, lo and behold, we just continue to kick it higher and further away from them and into Stevenage's hands for the remaining 25 minutes.
The more worrying aspect for me is I don't mind a team that concedes the odd goal if you've got total confidence in them going up the other end, like we did under Holloway years ago. If you conceded a goal, it was like, so what? We've got the attack. We'll be back in this in 5 minutes, lads. No problem. But we don't have that, and our response was pretty much non-existent, and that's what really worried me. It's not even the goal conceded; it's the reaction to it, and it's the lack of. I heard them talking about it on Radio Lancashire, and he said, I've forgotten his name. He's the goalkeeping coach that does all the commentary down south. He's a lovely fellow, actually. I've had a chat with him on Twitter. But he was saying they never looked. The final third was awful. It never looked like scoring a goal. And if you don't look like scoring a goal when you're 1-0 down, you lose the game. It's not rocket science, is it? But the reaction to it, or the lack of reaction, is the thing that really terrifies me. That we didn't look like saying, right, come on, we can get back into this. We didn't have any belief, did we? And we as fans didn't have any belief, whether you're in the stadium or watching it 200 miles back home up north. Just no good at all.
But again, you talk about reactions, and Ian Evatt having a choice to make at going 1-0 down in the 66th minute and making a treble substitution in the 68th minute, like for like with your two strikers, fine. And then he takes off what we've all just discussed as his most creative player and brings on a defensive midfielder. What sort of a fucking response is that?
And then
What are you saying to anyone looking for any sort?
14 minutes later, yeah.
You know, which is just bonkers, absolutely bonkers.
He really did fuck up today. I mean, it just then, Kurt's right. I mean, I'm not saying on this podcast live that I want him out, but the more questionable things that go on over time, and everyone says, oh, this, that, and the other with the squad, but I'm sorry, but there's plenty of squads out there which are still worse than ours. He still had a little bit more to play with, and sometimes, Fletcher's been flogged, and we can kind of forgive him for the Christmas period, but every single game are we saying, oh, he's inherited a shit squad when there's only Bowler that's really out at the moment. He continued to play Peacock Farrell all season. So there's either an issue with Ravazoli, then he talks him up and doesn't play him again. I think Peacock Farrell should have saved today's goal, but also I think Honeyman should have got something on the header. Then instead of trying to push him away slightly with two hands, just get into him and throw him on the floor. Maybe if you can't get the ball. Is a pathetic bit of defending from a championship experienced captain of Blackpool Football Club. He does nothing, a bit like Hamilton away at Barnsley, to try and even give away a free kick. It's an awful goal to concede, and one, like you've said, Martin, which is mirrored many poor goals this season. But anyway, he's making some really questionable decisions at the moment. It might be down to fitness, it might be down to this, that, and the other, but just he could have done today completely opposite. He could have started with Taylor and Bloxham. He could have then brought on Fletch and Ennis to maybe strike up a bit of a partnership. But yeah, I've said this. Ashworth maybe a bit more physical today. There's many things you can question because we've lost the game, and if we drew the game 0-0, we might be talking about this. But we've gone away from home again. And we did this against Critchley 2 or 3 times and not had a single shot on target against Stevenage. Yeah. A very difficult team to beat, don't get me wrong, but it's beyond pathetic and it's beyond poor. And I don't really have a lot of confidence that we're going to turn up against a really physical, exciting Peterborough side and have the ability to rip them apart, because we've not ripped apart anyone since Cardiff at home.
You know what, Tom? You're right. The performance today was very reminiscent of a lot of performances this season, but also going back ever since we've been back in League One, where we've turned up at these difficult plays. Well, we physically turned up, but mentally we certainly haven't turned up and put in a performance. But there's a pattern here, isn't there? And I genuinely don't know whether whether it's the manager, the players, whatever, seem to think that because we're Blackpool Football Club, we can turn up at these little places and just do the business. And consistently we don't, do we? With more chance, I mean, it's proven, more chance of going to Bolton or Huddersfield or Cardiff, where you're not expected to win. It's a bigger pitch, it's a bigger crowd, whatever. But we don't seem to be able to handle Northampton away, Burton away, or Stevenage away, do we? It's been like an endemic in our squad and our mentality ever since we got relegated into this division again. And we've had 3 different managers have had this, and Everett's the latest one, who I don't know whether he thinks that we'll be all right when we play these teams, but we're never ever very impressive, are we, against the teams that you really actually need to have some bollocks against?
No, it's not good enough. And like you say, today, like you say, he drops Walters and Bloxham, who've had probably 2 of their better games in Tangerine in the previous match, for 2 players who came in and were extremely poor today. And then I don't know what we tried to do today. For me, just go 4-3-3 today. sacrifice any sort of, because we didn't play, like you say, to Clarkson's strengths in any way, shape, or form. We didn't get the ball down, make any patterns of play through the phases or whatever all this modern day technical bullshit bravado language is. Right, we didn't make any passes at all with intent or purpose moving forward. We just lumped a ball 70 yards. Stephen would do it. They're great at that. So if we're going to do it, own it and play three up top. And then play your three dogs in the middle, try and pick up the second ball and send it exactly back where it came from and do it for 90 minutes and see how you get on, rather than doing absolutely nothing today. And more annoyingly, making someone like Clarkson, who has quality and ability on the ball, look like an absolute mug on that pitch.
Sure. We've had just exactly an hour, so the therapy session's nearly over, but there's just a couple of things we need to touch on. So moving on with that point about Everett, and look, I'm like everybody connected with Blackpool Football Club. You want your manager to do well. I have a massive amount of respect for Everett as the player that he was, and I really want him to do well as manager. And I was really starting to I had some doubts a few weeks ago. I do believe the players are massively letting him down, and I also think maybe they also let Steve Bruce down now in hindsight. But that's by the by. But there are some things you can't get away from, and having had an hour or so a couple of hours to reflect on it, there are some things that he absolutely has to carry the can for. But my argument would be, if we do get safe, so this is the two things, isn't it? If we get safe, I want to see progression next season, and I want to see a change of attitude. But also, I imagine this squad will be completely different, you would think. So my jury is out, and I want to see us do well. If we are scrapping for results and being extremely negative at home to Burton next season in September, that's a massive red flag for me, because there's no need to be like that in September. There's an element of firefighting going on for me at the moment. Maybe he's taken it too far, but I think you get my drift, that you can sort of excuse it to get out of a situation if it works fine, but we can't be like this next season if he's here. But the flip side of it, as you said, Hoggy, is if we were to get relegated, I don't know in modern football of many managers that regardless of when they came in, if a team gets relegated, they tend not to be kept on because of the optic of that, and it's sort of saying, well, look, it'll just have to do. We'll give them another chance, but the optics of getting relegated and keeping the manager are not very 2026, are they? That doesn't really happen anymore. So it's a massive few games, I think, for him as a person, as a manager, because he doesn't want to fail. And I know we know that he cares about the club, and we take the piss, but he does. But also, he can't take us down and survive, can he? And even I would say that. I don't think he can.
Well, there's two things to this. I think we've watched many teams this campaign, even Cardiff, fall into this remit, apart from Lincoln, who, Lutons of the world, we've gone there this season. And Stevenage are quite unique in the way they do things, and every credit to them for sticking to it and battling for the playoffs consistently. But there's no one that plays brave football in this league because they're scared of losing games, and that's the same with Wiltshire. It's the same with Brian Barry Murphy. I know they win games, they've got the quality overall, but Peterborough were, mavericks in the sense of they were really exciting to watch and challenge for promotion a few years ago. Now they're going through a bit of transition, but there isn't many teams that have the ability to be brave like Holloway was. And, we face the fruits of their labour. At the end of the day, if he was brave enough, like he learnt under Ollie next season, we'll have much more enjoyable season. There's undoubtedly will be in those playoffs. We're just going to continue in the same thought. And I have every ounce of my bones believes next season there will be absolutely no change of system, because we've got the players to play a 4-3-3 now and be really exciting. And he hasn't done it. Like today, like Hoggy said, just be brave on the ball. Put blocks and far right today. Put Hamilton left. Put Fletcher Ennis down the middle. Play those three in midfield. You've got Honeyman, Clarkson, and Brown or Anderson if you want to play them there, and play a flat four. Why? Why not do that?
Sure.
They're not idiots, footballers. They know how to run down the wing and cross the ball into the box. I don't know, mate. I don't know the answer. I don't know who I'd want ideally instead of Everett, but I've got no positive words in the last sort of few months to say he's exactly the man we need. And I know his points ratio is fairly decent. I think we sit about 13th. since he's taken over, which is a darn sight better than Bruce. Don't get me wrong, and I don't think the players don't care, but I also think that we haven't been cohesive in a very long time. We can't keep sacking managers, and if he does survive, he deserves the summer and he deserves to build a squad that he wants.
Yeah,
but by damn it, he needs to be brave next season and start to win.
That's my point.
Matches,
yeah, it has to change, doesn't it, Hoggy? It's got to be braver.
We can't keep blaming the players, in my opinion. Well, no, we can blame the players, sorry, but he says today we weren't brave enough on the ball, but he was happy to sit and watch long balls being played for an hour.
Yeah, we keep talking about being brave. There's the other side of this to me. Just stop being so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Stop making our life harder by doing really stupid, basic things wrong at League One standard of football. Just get the absolute basics right. Get players in and around. Your creative players who can make things happen. Get your centre halves playing centre halves, not fucking right sided centre halves, and expecting them to do great things. We're just making it so much more complicated than it needs to be. And by all means, let's not make no bones about it. Everyone wants Ian Evatt to succeed at Blackpool Football Club, but I'm very much not hiding away from the fact these 4 games are absolutely massive for us. Never mind Ian Evatt, I'm talking Blackpool Football Club.
Of course.
I'm very clear. If we go down, he goes for me. It's simple as that. Because things like today and the Wigan game cannot be excused and will be a fundamental part of killing any sort of momentum that he might have gained attraction-wise of keeping us up.
We're 1-0 up in 3 minutes against Wigan, and then they sit back for the whole of the game and we should lose. Like, it's what has happened to us as a football club. Like, that should be your bounce board to go, right, let's kick on here now.
Mark, go on, Hoggy.
I was just going to say, of course, we're and he said it himself, not too high when we win, not too low when we lose. Hard not to after today, of course, and the performance. Can take losing football matches at this level. It's all about how you do it, and today is simply not acceptable in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
The next 4 games are absolutely massive. Cut out trying to be overly smart, overly technical and cautious. Do what this football club does best. Put the creative players on the pitch. Go and attack the teams that are coming to us at Bloomfield Road. Blackpool Football Club in League One should never, ever fear anybody coming to Bloomfield Road. Don't care what club it is in League One. Simple as that. And the positive note is, it is still in our hands. It's still in our hands, and we mustn't forget that. But we need, and we simply cannot afford anything other than 6 from 6 at home as an absolute minimum, and putting in the same kind of performances that we're putting in at home away from home as well. And that's the minimum expectation.
Mark says we brought in a few players in high contracts. A lot of the players will still be here. Well, if we get relegated, I guarantee some of them will probably feel that they need to be playing at a higher level, even though it was those that got us there in the first place. And they won't want to redeem themselves. They'll be off, won't they? The likes of Honeyman, I'm sure, won't fancy Grimsby away on a Tuesday night.
Doesn't fancy fucking Stevenage away, mate. So he's not one of Salford away, is he? So
and Luke as well. Luke's made some really good points tonight. Play 4-2-3-1. We have 2 people for each position. Well, yeah. Let's just get to the end of the season because I'm drained by it. I know we all are, aren't we? We've all had enough of it, really, because it's not what we intended, what we expected. And also, Mark has he needs to build that squad and not let Downs do it. Well, that's another conversation, but. Listen, there's got to be heads have got to roll. Someone's got to pay for this car crash of the season, regardless of what happens.
If I was going to trust Evatt next season, we stay up, then I don't really blame Sadler at all. But you're going to need to see another rebuild, and that's why I'm reluctant to sack a manager if we stay up. But obviously, results next season will dictate that. But if he's building his squad for his identity and his success he's had over the years, such as Bolton, such as Barrow, when his win ratios is absolutely incredible, then I'll give him that opportunity. He has inherited a half-decent squad. Maybe that's not the way he wants to play. And let's face it, take away Bowler, we've only got Randall, who we've just clearly agreed doesn't fancy it. And other than that, really, Taylor's your most creative player. So he's got to do what he can do with the squad. But then, we can also say, change the system just to tinker it, just to be effective, like a 4-3-3, where Bloxham can impact his abilities and not as a striker. So you've got to balance his judgment with his squad that he wants to build and what he's doing. But at the moment, his in-game management is pretty poor. And there was probably 2 or 3 games, Martin, realistically. And I don't mean to be overly negative because, like Hoggy says, it is in our hands. And I'm looking forward to, hopefully fighting against Peterborough for those 3 points. But there isn't any games apart from Cardiff, really. If I can go through them now, but it's going to take 10, 15 minutes where you can say we played really well.
Mhm.
Huddersfield away, really good for the first half.
Yeah.
Then followed by Plymouth. Mansfield at home, they probably should have scored 1 or 2 goals. Bolton away, half decent. Lincoln away, okay, and they should have scored. Wigan at home, cowardly. Wimbledon
That
away,
was.
capitulation.
100%.
Doncaster away, pathetic. Port Vale at home, really good last 20 minutes. Cardiff away, half decent performance, didn't really touch
Yeah.
the ball. Burton at home, last minute winner. Exeter at home, let them try and score. And then today, like, there are so many games where you can go, when was the last good 90 minutes we played? And I can't for the life of you tell you, apart from Cardiff.
Yeah, like Luke quite rightly says, we December was a decent month. We played Rotherham twice in that month, didn't we? But we said that they are definitely getting relegated.
Yeah.
And we beat them quite easily, beat Wigan away, and it was a decent month, but January was a bit of a car crash, wasn't it?
Again, apart from Bode, where was Rotherham at home again this season? I know we had Imre and stuff, I get it, but like...
Well, we did have Imre, and he made a massive difference, didn't he? He was different class,
Well, I
wasn't
think
he?
we're flogging a dead horse. They need to fucking step up against Peterborough after today, because the 2 games at home were needed, and then we go into the biggest game in our history again on Saturday, where the fans are going to turn up, and the players, like Hockey said, they need to as well. Because I think if we win, I hate to say it, we'll know what Exeter have done by half, and if it's 5 points clear with other teams below us, then you've got probably an 80% chance of staying up with Leyton Orient to come at home. But the 2 away games are rotten. Playing Wycombe, who want the playoffs, and Reading, who want the playoffs, and they very rarely lose at home. We're not going to turn up and do anything different there, like Hoggy said.
Yeah, I think Wycombe are going to struggle to make the playoffs, but if they still got half a sniff, it's still a difficult game. And like you say, it doesn't really matter what their mentality is. Ours has got to be right, because if ours is wrong, we won't win anyway, will we? So, right. Well, listen. Thank you. It's been therapeutic when it shouldn't have been, should it? We should have been talking about this in much more positive terms. But you can only go with the last game, can't you? You're only as good as your last game, and if that's true, then we are shite. Thank you for all your comments. Really appreciate all your comments. It's been, again, therapeutic, but it's also been a bit weird being on this side of it when Tom's taking the questions. But Tom, thank you for letting us do this, and I hope you've enjoyed the little break from having to do all this. But
I'm actually more angry now, if I'm honest, mate.
Right, okay. Tom's going to if anyone's interested, Tom will be sitting here for an hour afterwards. It's just going to be growling at a picture of Ian. He's going to stick a picture of Ian Everett on his dartboard and go, "Why? 3-5-2, you twat."
We should have won today, and I can enjoy the World Cup, and we can focus on next season. But we just got to do it all over again Saturday.
You say enjoy the World Cup, but I hope it's different. But having watched those 2 friendlies, it put me right off it.
What I mean? I'll enjoy.
Might put a Brazil shirt on instead.
Saudi Arabia versus Croatia, and when in the world do we get that sort of game? So you can enjoy football for what it is when you watch the World Cup, but we've got to do it all again Saturday, and it's mentally killing me.
Yeah, no. It is. It's. I enjoy the bits going to the stadium and sitting in my seat, and then when it kicks off, I just have my head in my hands for most of the game, or I'm asleep, whichever. But Hoggy, thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, let's just hope that Saturday is a lot better, and if Exeter lose to Plymouth, then we might have that buffer zone. But that buffer zone bothers me, because I think our players will think, "Oh, we're on the beach now, lads," and then before you know it, we're in deep shit again. So this is just going to be a nightmare till the end, isn't it? Potentially.
I've said it from day one. This is going all the way. One step
it might
forward,
do.
2 steps back. But all we can do as fans, as we've done for the last 2 weeks, turn up on Saturday, get behind the boys, whoever's out there, make sure they know that there's no hiding place. It's a place where we will support them, but be brave, be creative, try and embrace it, go and win the game. Don't be worried about losing it. Go and get the 3 points. We'll do our part, make sure they do their part, and then whatever's happened elsewhere has happened elsewhere. We've got to stop worrying about it and focus on doing our jobs until the end of the season. 4 games, the end.
Sure. Right, guys. Well, thank you. As I say, thank you to everyone that's listened. Thank you to everyone that's contributed comments. We will. Tom, you can guide me on this. Are we having a Peterborough preview, or are we just?
Yeah, I'll go try and contact Neil, who's a long-standing guest on the pod. I'll try and get him on. He's a great guest, so we can talk solely about that game rather than last 3 at that point, I suppose. But yeah, we'll try and get Peterborough preview done.
one other thing worth mentioning is that we are trying to. I've had a quick chat with Kieran Maguire from the Price of Football podcast to talk about our accounts that came out. He's up for doing a podcast, so when we can get that sorted, it won't be live. I think it'll just be a recorded thing for half an hour because he knows far more about finances than we do, and obviously he can pick through the bones of our accounts, as he's probably done with about 35 other clubs over this last week. It's like Christmas for Kieran Maguire, isn't it? It's like transfer deadline day, the 31st of March. I wonder if he wears a yellow tie like Jim White used to. But anyway, hopefully we'll bring that to you, and it'd be nice to get a real expert perspective on what is often quite a boring subject, but Kieran makes it a lot more user-friendly, and I look forward to that. Hopefully we can get that in the can in the next week or so. But anyway, from all of us here at the It's Not Orange podcast, enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy Peterborough, hopefully, and we'll see you very soon. Okay? So from all of us, take care. Bye-bye.